4, 3, 2.
Blast off.
The Tax Increment Financing Board meeting will now be called to order. It's taking place today, Thursday, October 17th, 2 o'clock in the Mayor's Office Conference Room here at One Government Center. First item on our agenda, there's no clerk here for a roll call, but you usually do it? All right, you want to just do the before we do that, pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. There's 2 media sources here today, Fall River Government TV, as well as the Fall River Herald News that is recording this TIF board meeting. There's also individuals who are here in the audience. Tony Cordero is here, Ken Fiola is here, Bob Karam is here, Mr. Walls from Bay Coast Bank is here as well. Thank you for being here. City Administrator, if you want to just call the roll.
Certainly. Councilor Stephen Long?
Here.
Councilor Joseph Camara?
Here.
Richard Gonzalez?
Here.
Frank Mazzioni?
Here.
Kathy Viveras? Here. And Mr. President, I guess Mr. Mayor?
Here.
Mr. Conti.
First item on our agenda is citizens' input. Is there anybody who would like to speak for citizens' input? Nope. Hearing none. Nobody wants to speak? Hearing none. Approval of minutes for the meeting held on May 9th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve
Second.
the minutes
Second.
by Councilor Long, seconded by Mr. Marchione has been made. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next item on our agenda is the HDIP for the Downtown Development Companies LLC, 33rd Street, Fall River, Mass. 02720. Representation from the Downtown Development Companies LLC here today. You'd like to speak regarding this at all? Just a brief highlight if you want to join us at the table. And just for the record, state your name and address for the record, please.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think the TIF board members need to be advised that you had previously approved a TIF agreement for downtown development for this property at 33rd Street. We are, I guess, pleased to announce that the project has gotten a little bit larger, so this TIF, if you approve it, will be implemented, and your prior TIF agreement for the same parcel will actually be nulled out, and this one will be the one that's driving.
To get information on the previous
Yes.
tie, actually. Right?
Yes, tie agreement, correct. Previously, I believe there were 12 total units with 10 market rate, and the agreement before you today is for 18 units with 16 market rate. So this is essentially a change from the previous agreement, tie agreement that was approved by this board.
I also want to acknowledge that Mrs. Sahadi, City Chief Financial Officer, is joining us here today as well. I didn't acknowledge you earlier, so I'd like to acknowledge you that you're here. Mr. Fiola?
Yeah, so I think I'll just start us off, then I'll turn it over to Mr. Cordero, but as Ms. Viveras has actually indicated, this is the second TIF tie application that's being sought for 33rd Street. As previously indicated, the initial tie application consisted of 12 one-bedroom units that were located on floors 3 and 4 of the property itself. As a result of that time in between when the initial tie was presented and today, Mr. Cordero, as the owner and developer of the property, Downtown Development LLC, has witnessed an additional demand for market rate units within the city, and he is now expanding the overall project to consist of 18 units as opposed to the initial 12 units that were previously approved. And of those 18 units, we're looking at 16 market rate units. The overall cost of the project is $5,574,475. As indicated in the TIF agreement itself and in keeping with previous TIF agreements, the owner of the property is going to be looking for a real estate tax exemption of 80% for fiscal years 1 through 5 and 20% for fiscal years through 6 through 10. You have in your package there that was prepared by the city itself, you'll see that the overall exemption for that property, there's a creation of an additional $1,987,000, a new value being created. And I think the overall, let's see if I find the page, the exemption is going to now reflect the annual exemption is now going to reflect $21,735.22 each year for years for each year of the 10-year period as it's currently configured. Obviously, that may change as assessments go up, but the actual property, the real estate tax savings to the developer will represent $17,388.18 on an annual basis from years 1 through 5, and then years 6 through 10, $4,347.04, for a total savings of $86,940.89 over the 10-year period. Again, I think this project represents a rehabilitation of a historic property. The introduction of market rate units into the central business district. I think we're seeing the tremendous demand for these type of market rate units, and I think it's going to add to the overall housing stock within the city in terms of choices for people looking to rent properties themselves. Mr. Cordero?
I think Kenny's basically summed up what I'm trying to do, and that is, for years, we talked about changing the housing stock and bringing millenniums and others into downtown Fall River. I think where we are, we're as close to possible as you could be to North Main and South Main Street. We started out with 28 units, if this board remembers. We're now up to 52. We bought the Gamma Workers Union building, and we're designing 12 units in that building. We call our brand the Lofts. We have a huge demand already, Mr. President, because the same management company is Hawking that manages my property on the river, and we have a huge waiting list for young millennials to come in and bring the downtown to a place where people can not only live, but they can play and enjoy life. And I think you're seeing that. One of the neighbors on the side of me has decided to go forward with a photographic art studio cafe. That all blends well with bringing in millenniums and empty nesters and others into 1-bedroom, 1-baths. That's what we're building. And I envision, and we're designing, and Ken knows, we're designing, we hope to get to 500 units in downtown Fall River, where we can create this whole cluster of a new engine of viability. So that's what we're pursuing, and we believe.
Any questions for Mr. Cordero or Mr. Faiolo? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the tie agreement for downtown development,
Motion has been-
LLC.
A motion has been made by Mrs. Rivera, seconded by Councilor Joseph Kamara. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
I need to abstain, please.
Mr. Marchione has abstained from that vote for the record. Thank you very much. Motion carries.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you, Bill.
Next order of business is the HDIP for VCBBK LLC, 0 Turner Street, Fall River, Mass. 02720, 697 to 793 Fall Street, Fall River, Mass. 02720. We have representatives from both are here today. I recognize Mr. Karam as soon as he's prepared.
I'm being stationed.
Excuse me.
Thank you for your patience.
Just as a information, I'm a former employee of Naples Bank, no longer employed there. I retired from that bank. I don't feel that constitutes if anybody here feels it constitutes a conflict, then I will abstain. I don't see a problem with that.
And for the record, I will say that I will be abstaining from this vote, as I have had dealings with Mr. Karam in the past, so I will be abstaining from the vote.
Anybody left the vote?
It's only me as of right now.
I am abstaining as well due to Bristol County economic
Noted.
consultants.
All right, we're good. Thank you. We're good. Plenty of people. All right, so Mr. Viola, Mr.
Yeah,
Wallace,
I
Mr.
will
Carroll?
do the same thing as I did before. I'll just give the basic parameters of the project and then turn it over to Mr. Karen and Mr. Wallace for some further elaboration. But like all market rate housing projects within the city, I think this one here is equally as exciting as the redevelopment of Commonwealth Landing or the redevelopment of the Ben and Nate building or the Trolley building or other buildings that are proposed for the development. The difference between this project and the other projects is that this represents ground-up construction. This is not a rehab of a historic building, so these projects here are a bit more challenging because you don't have the ability to tap into historic housing tax credits, both on a federal and state level. So what this project represents is the redevelopment of a 47,700 square foot plus or minus vacant parcel of land located at the corner of Duval Street and Turner Street, which is on the east side of Duval Street. I think people may remember that parcel as being previously housed the Depot Lounge.
Duval Street Cafe.
Duval Street Cafe. So that property was purchased by the development team a couple of years ago, and they actually demolished the properties that were on there. The property will be redeveloped to accommodate a 6-story structure with 1 and 2 bedroom units located on floors 2 through 6. On the first level of the facility, we will have a state-of-the-art Bay Coast Bank branch office with an associated drive-through, and the balance of the first floor will be developed for complementary retail and residential supportive services for the tenants of the property itself. I think as in keeping with previously approved tie agreements, as you know, the board just took a vote. Once again, this tie request reflects an exemption, 80% exemption for years 1 through 5, and a 20% exemptions from years 6 through 10, according to the map that was spelled out within the agreement itself. Obviously, there's been a tremendous emphasis on redevelopment of the waterfront. We've seen a lot of significant private investment take place throughout the years, whether it's Commonwealth Landing, whether it's the Cove Restaurant, whether it's the new medical office building down there. And this project itself, I think, not only complements the projects that have come before, but also sets a new standard for development along the waterfront. I think in light of the Route 79 plans and also the proximity to the new proposed commuter rail terminal, this really is a signatory project for our waterfront and probably represents the first really ground-up construction for residential that I can think of in the last, at least 10, 15, if not longer, years. This is in the CB building being depicted back there. So I think I've said enough. I'll turn it over to Mr. Karen for some further elaboration and the rationale for moving forward.
Thank you. When we decided to work on the site, we were talking to Bay Coast Bank, and if you all know Nick Christ, he's quite an asset to this region. And so the idea was trying to sell him on doing a branch bank. And then he said, why don't we put a couple of floors of office over it? And a couple of months later, he said, why don't we do apartments? And so we've ended up with this project. And this would be a difficult project for anybody but Tony Cadero to be able to finance this project, but I've got the bank to back me up, so it's letting me stay up with Superman here. But anyway, we're very happy about this. It's obviously we need your help. We've been following market studies, many of which are some of Tony's businesses, and where we're finding out, and the market is going up. And we think we'll have a combination of millennials and people going to Boston. And we will have storage on the lower level. We'll have a basement with storage. The bank is going to have their branch operation with the modern technology that they have today. And we have the opportunity to get going on this thing. Okay, without this TIF, we could not make it work. So we're hoping that you see, and I don't mean to bow down to Tony, but Tony proved with the building at the mills down further, because I bid on that the first time and lost to the bookstore, and then I knew they were lowering the amount of bid, and I almost got to the doorstep, but I was nervous and I didn't do it. Tony did it, and he's done a wonderful job there. So we want to follow suit with other local developers, do a nice job with that one. and continue to show people that there's a place to develop, whether it's up where he is in the downtown or where we are in this case on the waterfront. So it's,
The one other point I forgot to mention in my presentation is that of the 49 units, 40 are actually going to be market rate units, and 9 are going to, we're seeking to have them as designated as workforce housing units.
I know Mr. Cordero wanted to speak because he was referenced, so I'll allow Mr. Cordero to speak.
So I will tell you that I'm a huge fan of Mr. Carroll, one of my mentors, and Joe Feilberg and others. I almost want to cry. But at his age, for the board, to go out this long says a lot about his love for the city. He and I both appreciate, amongst all of you, the love we have for the city. But I'm not so sure at his age, and he's young, that I would go this long. And so
I bought life
I would
insurance so the bank
support
won't
him.
get stuck.
I would support him. I encourage other developers, because the market studies that he and I referenced say we should be doing 1,500 to 1,600 new market rate. It's not a competition, but between us two. It's about delivering for the betterment of the city. So, love you, embrace you, I think you're crazy, but that's good.
Anything further?
He's right, Kathy, right.
Any comments, questions, discussion on this item?
How about the,
Yeah, we just have one question, and we don't want to prolong or
Delay their
exacerbate approval, right? We just like if the city could vote to, if the board so chooses, to vote to approve the tie for a 10-year period based upon an 80% exemption for years 1 through 5 and 20% for years 6 through 10. But we just like them to take another look at the valuation, because it looks like you have the value of the property at the construction price, and so maybe you've taken that into account, I'm not quite sure. But we don't want that situation where at year 11, there's a sky-high value, so we just want to make sure that the valuation is correct.
Mr. Veras?
Yeah, I did speak to the assessor because they were required to complete the schedule of the proposed abatement. Because it's vacant land right now, they really had to make a number of assumptions regarding the ultimate value. They did get a copy of your plan, which provided some information. But the TIF board is certainly aware, but you also need to be advised that we won't be able to establish the actual assessed value until the building is constructed.
Okay.
And then they will go in and do an appropriate appraisal and assessment, and so...
I know we didn't give enough time too, so I apologize for that.
No,
We just
that's
didn't
okay.
want to be locked into the 10+ million, so.
Understood. So I think it's just clear that the percentages will hold. It will remain 80% for the first 5 years and 20% for the balance. But the assessed value will ultimately not be determined until the building is constructed and the assessors have an opportunity to go in and take a look at it. And so we're not really sure what that value will be, but also I think members need to be advised that when we're making assessments on properties, that there are guidelines that have to be followed. Department of Revenue monitors these things very carefully, so it's not that there's total freedom and flexibility on the part of the local Board of Assessors to establish that value. There are parameters that have to be followed. I don't know if Mr. Gonzalez, if you wanted to add anything further to that as a member of the Board of Assessors.
No, I mean, it's a good plan that we go ahead and approve the TIF, go back and look at the numbers.
Yeah.
That's fine.
thank you.
Thank you
So
very
fine.
much.
Is there a motion?
I got a question.
Councilor Long?
So if the value upon completion is higher, or if the value is lower, what does that do to the agreement?
Just as percent.
Okay, so it will
adjust the values?
address the exempted real estate value, the actual
So the
dollar that you have in
percentages
that
would stay
column.
the same, but the
Percentages stay the
numbers would
same,
change.
Right.
correct.
20%.
But the amount of the actual
Just wanted-
abatement will change based on that assessed value.
Just wanted to
So
make
just as
sure
long
we're
as
clear.
everybody is aware, because we,
It's impossible to get the value now.
Yeah.
exactly,
It's impossible.
Okay.
right. So this is just an estimate based on what we know today, but I think all parties need to understand that
Yeah,
that
do
value
it.
may change,
Yeah,
and
it's just sometimes it's in writing, so we just wanted to give it, thank you for the
absolutely,
clarification.
yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Motion has been
Second.
made by Councilor Joseph Kamara,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Gonzalez. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain? Mr. Marchione abstained. The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any new business before the TIF board at this
It's
time?
amazing what you do at age 50.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn has been made by
I did
Mrs.
hear
Barron,
that. Maybe what I
seconded by
do at age
Councilor Longo. All those in
Plus
favor?
76.
Ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you.